Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to read again from When We Are 50, or When We Were 50. Yeah, it was a while ago, even. When We Were 50 by Christopher Matthew. And the first one that I'm going to read is Sir John's Problem. And you might remember the Christopher Robin poem about King John was not a good man. He had his little ways, and sometimes no one spoke to him for days and days and days. Here we have Sir John's problem. Sir John was quite an odd man in many, many ways, and never quite so odd as in his old pre-knighthood days. Before he joined the great and good with entries in Who's Who, he toiled as hard as anyone. He'd never walk, but always run, the workaholic number one, a slogger through and through. That John was not a wise man, a gambler to his boots. At work, at play, in every way he'd take the gambler's routes. His penchant was for poker and cards of every kind. He'd work and play through all the year, then bolstered up with Christmas cheer, he'd pack his bags and disappear to Vegas to unwind. He made a load of money when he was in his prime. No sooner had he earned it than he lost it every time. His wife was most forbearing, she never said a word. She gardened hard and ran the house. She didn't sulk or bleat or grouse. She was for him the perfect spouse, albeit wife the third. Sir John was quite a kind man. He loved his little Kate. He didn't want to see her hurt or put her in a bait. One year he had a brain wave. He clenched a trembling jaw and wrote to every gambling joint, "I'm not a man to disappoint, but if I turn up, make a point of showing me the door. Ignore my protests and refuse my bribes, and turn the deafest ear you can to all my taunts and jibes. I don't want arguments, I don't want fuss, and I don't want violence or funny stuff. Plus, do me a favour, write a letter to my wife and tell her how I plan to lead a whole new kind of life." Sir John was quite romantic. He stood by the front door and gathered up the letters as they fell upon the floor. He wrapped them up in tissue, went down on bended knee. Beside the bed on Christmas Day he handed Kate a silver tray, and swore henceforth he'd never play. She had his guarantee. Forget about the poker and forget about the debt. From this time on I'll never hold a card or make a bet. I don't need excitement, I don't want spice. I've got a perfect marriage now with someone really nice. So here's my Christmas presents, these letters from my clubs. To prove how much I love you, Kate, I've cancelled all my subs. John stood in his study and stared out on the lawn. Resolve was weak. He cursed the day that ever he was born. A letter for the taxman, the worst he'd ever seen. His mind went blank, his brain was numb. He scratched his nose, his ear, his bum. He hadn't got a bean. Sir John was most resourceful. Within a week or less he'd been to every gambling club to rectify his mess. He tried out every cunning ruse and every sort of spin, like dressing as an Arab sheik in bed sheets that were clearly fake, but no one made the daft mistake of letting him come in. Sir John kissed his beloved and cut straight to the chase. "We owe the taxman 90 grand. I fear I'm in disgrace." Kate said, "We've got a problem. The bathroom man's an ass. He's put the tiles on upside down. They should be pale pink, not brown. The man's a fool, a twerp, a clown. The whole thing looks a farce." Sir John was quite a calm man. He coughed and said, "My dear, you obviously weren't listening. You clearly didn't hear. I said we owe a fortune." She said, "For all your wiles, there's nothing you can do today. There's nothing more to think or say. So ring the man at Haringey and sort these ruddy tiles." The moral of this story is clear to any man. Don't waste your time with things you can't. Get on with things you can. And then a very short poem to finish off. respect, which is a little bit like Daffodowndilly. Deli. He wore a hooded sweatshirt and jeans with pre-torn knees. He cycled down the pavement as careless as you please. I wore a tie and jacket, the trademarks of a toff. I didn't have to say a word, I looked, and he said, "Fuck off!" Bye, folks.